So let's do a quick revision, which should take 1.5 hours sharp. Which should take 1.5 hours sharp on the case study for November 2022 for MCS. So first thing obviously is to understand what the case study is, which I think we have a reasonably good understanding now. So we are a chain of toy retailers. We have 120 outlets. We don't manufacture. We buy from various different toy suppliers. Uh, and I'm sure we do sell branded toys, and we must be selling our own toys as well. Westaria is the country where we are based. There is about 7.8 billion market available, out of which we were told 20, 30, 15%, so 10% is ours, and there is 15% that's owned by the other retail chain. So we don't manufacture, we buy and sell. So these are very, very kind of 1 minute summary of the, if you technically take 1 minute summary of the pre-sale. 1 minute summary of the pre-sale. Now, if I then try to see what could be there on the exam day, if I then try to see what could be there on that's the objective of me trying to give a 1 minute summary. Now, if we try to see, okay, what could be there on the exam day, what kind of questions might be there on the exam day. So, the questions on the exam day has to be more concentrated on the core activities. Question on the exam day should be more concentrated on the core activities. So, what could be there on the exam day? Now, so if I look at the core activity A, you should be very well aware what will be there on the exam day, because you can easily predict based on the core activity A. So, capital investment appraisal techniques is an area that should be there on the exam day. So, without a doubt, this will be there. In any paper, from one of the most critical P2 areas, capital investment appraisal techniques will be there. Now, for the examiner to give a question on the capital investment appraisal, so there should be a new project available. So examiner asks questions about NPV, IRR, payback, discounted payback, ARR. When do you think payback is more suitable? When the environment is very, very uncertain, NPV is useless. Payback is more suitable. Because you might have a positive NPV, but first 4 years of the cash flows may be nothing. You have positive NPV because there are large cash inflows coming from the 5th year, 6th year, 7th year, 8th year. But then that will be not really helpful if the environment is very uncertain. If the environment is uncertain, we need the cash to come early, so we know, at least we have some assurance they can be recovered. After 5 years, what will happen in this uncertain environment? We don't know. So therefore, you should have a very good understanding about NPV, IRR, payback, discounted payback, ARR. ARR is also important. We are a publicly listed company. ARR is important. Earnings per share needs to be reported. So therefore, profits are important. When we are a publicly listed company, people will compare ourselves with the last quarter, last year, last few years' performance. So, not to say that, you not to recommend one of the methods and close your eyes. You should know what are the advantages and disadvantages of each one. However, when examiner try to give a question on the capital investment appraisal, examiner needs to create a new project. So, new project on the exam day could be anything. New project on the exam day could be anything. When the new project is there, when the capital investment appraisal is being discussed, weighted average cost of capital can also be part of the same question easily. So examiner can set a question on the weighted average cost of capital and the capital investment appraisal techniques like NPV, IRR, payback, discounted payback, ARR, all of those examiner can put it together. Other one examiner can put together is digital data sources. So there are traditional data sources available. There can be digital data sources available. So those three will go hand in hand. Those three will go hand in hand because examiner can easily give a question on this. So examiner, if examiner is going to cover this particular area where examiner will say this is the first one that examiner would like to cover. This is the first one examiner would like to cover. This is the second one examiner would like to cover. Right? This is the third one examiner would like to cover. So these are three nice areas examiner can easily give questions from. These are three nice areas examiner can easily give questions from. Right? So here from the co-activity, project management tools can be a separate question. Key personnel on the project management tool can be a separate question. Risk management can be a separate question. Here, if examiner wants another question, that examiner can easily link into the earlier lot. Here, examiner can easily give another question here. So earlier we marked how many areas? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this might be the fourth area that examiner allowed to give a question from. This might be a fourth area that examiner allowed to give a question from. Because again, they are related to each other. If it's a new project, you need to fund. If you're going to fund, you should know what are the sources of funding available. And which funding methods are better, which funding methods are not suitable. So examiner can easily give a question from them. So this one set of questions can examiner give questions. So there are 4 areas we have covered. Now, of course, you can link various other things into it. But I just want to take 15 minutes to look at these 4 areas. If I want to look at these 4 areas together for 15 minutes. Because that's the first lot that I want to go through. 1, 2, 3, 4. So how examiner can give a question on these areas? Simple, right? Examiner might say, now what do? We did a 1 minute. The session today is 1 hour and 30 minutes, which is 90 minutes. I spend 1 minute to give an update on the pre-sale. So based on that 1 minute update, I am sure you will be able to get a rough idea of what it is, right? Based on the 1 minute update, we buy toys. We sell toys in our country mostly. What percentage of toys are exported? Do we export any toys? What percentage of the toys are exported? Do we export any toys? Based on the pre-scene, do we export any toys? Right? So we are mostly selling toys in our country. Do we manufacture toys? No, we don't manufacture toys, right? We don't manufacture toys. So maybe examiner can say, we would like to go into manufacturing of the toys. Now please be practical on the exam day. You should understand the toy market. Toy retailers, you should understand the toy market. Now you can't tell the examiner, yes, that's a superb idea. We don't need to buy anyone's toys. We'll manufacture all our toys and sell. That doesn't work. Lego is Lego. Barbie dolls are Barbie dolls. You can't manufacture Lego building blocks. You can't manufacture Barbie dolls. You can't. They are manufactured by the branded companies. You'll have to buy those toys from them continuously. Branded toys you need to buy. But some of the non-branded, instead of buying from some of the non-branded to your own brand. You might be having various brands. You might be having branded toys. Your own brand. You might be having your own brand building blocks. Those, instead of buying from a third party manufacturer, we can manufacture to ourselves. So this one area examiner can create a question. This is one area examiner can create a question. So this is what I call, you got to be ahead of the examiner. You got to be ahead of the examiner. You can't be scared of the examiner. I'm not saying that examiner should be scared of you, but at least you can't be scared of the exam. You should be ahead of the examiner. You should know how examiner set questions and what areas examiner will select. That you should be able to say. So whenever examiner says, we have been in the business for X number of years, we have never manufactured our own toys, but our branded toys were outsourced, manufacturing were done by many different factories. So that particular category, small percentage, we are trying to open our own factory. So whenever examiner says that, you should get into your mind, I understand. Co-activity A, no? You need to give questions from co-activity A. Investment appraisal. What data sources available? Cost of capital. How to finance. So those four areas can come together. Those four areas can come together. So therefore, that's one area examiner can give a question. Or examiner might say, we have decided to go overseas. We have been selling in one country for so many years. Enough is enough. We found a superb market. We want to go into that market and start our own operations in that country. Examiner will say, but again, for that, you need do you need money to do that? I mean, if you are going into manufacturing, you need to buy a factory, you need to build a factory. But if you go overseas and start selling, do you need money for what? Because if you need money only, you can give the questions on the investment appraisal. So if you try to go overseas and distribute toys, do you need money? For what do you need money? If you try to go overseas and start manufacturing, for what do you need money? What are the cost element that you need capital investments? Of course, you need to buy the toys, but that's not the capital, that's the working capital, right? I'm asking what are the fixed capital requirement if you try to go to overseas country and set up? If you try to go to overseas country and sell your toys, what are the fixed capital requires? What machines? What machines? Because you are not going to manufacture. So what machines? You are trying to go and sell, right? We are trying to go and sell. You are trying to go and sell. So even now we are not manufacturing. So in that case, we don't need to manufacture. Staff is not fixed capital, no, staff is working capital. Logistic is working capital. I'm asking fixed capital. I think you understand what I'm saying, right? I'm asking fixed capital, not working capital. What are the fixed capital required? The fixed capital requirement will be most likely maybe a distribution center. Maybe a distribution center, which is a warehouse. You are right, warehouse. Maybe the vehicles distribution. You can outsource the vehicle distribution if you want, but maybe you need to have your own vehicle for the distribution, and maybe you need to have your own warehouse. So that is where the fixed capital required. Because don't forget, working capital is different, no? Working capital, we are not going to use capital investment appraisal techniques, no? The fixed capital is where we use the capital investment appraisal technique, right? That is what you call the fixed capital investment appraisal techniques, right? So you need to have a distribution center and the vehicles. So then again, if you try to go into a new country, examiner can give the question. Or I think other thing that we should do is, why not we start our own retail? Do we have our own retail now? Do we have our own retail now? Do we have our own retail now, or do we sell in the third-party retail outlets? Do we have our own retail outlets, or do we have third-party retail outlets? How do we sell now? How do we sell now? How do we sell? We now sell in 120 outlets which are owned by us but leased. Entire 120 outlets are leased by us. Entire 120 outlets are leased. We might decide to have our own retail outlet either in the country or overseas. So whatever the story comes, the questions will be very, very similar. And the questions will be very, very practical. So capital investment appraisal questions that might come. So let me create a story. Let me create a story and let me give a question based on the story. Let me create a story and let me give a question based on the story. We decided to go into Eastland, whatever the country. We decided to go into Eastland and start selling our toys there. We have decided to run the very similar model where toys will be purchased in the way that we do now. We'll be purchasing the toys in the same way that we do now. We are not going to manufacture the toys or whatever. We'll buy the toys in our country and we will ship the toys to the Eastland to be sold in Eastland. Eastland is going to be our new country. We are trying to buy a warehouse, distribution center. We are trying to buy vehicles. And where we are going to sell? We are going to sell in 3 different retail outlets owned by us. We are trying to sell them in 3 different retail outlets owned by us. Right? We are trying to sell in 3 different retail outlets owned by us. What do you mean owned by us? Not like in our country. In our country, we have leased it out. No? There, we are trying to run the retail outlet in a place that is owned by us. That is owned by us. That is what we are trying to do. That is what we are trying to do. Now, don't forget, as at now, we are not having third-party retail outlets. We are having own retail outlets, but leased. There's a big difference. There's a big difference. Not that we go and put the product to a other toy retailer. No, we go and sell the product in our own toy retail outlets, but they're leased. Now, in this new country, Eastland, what we are trying to do is we are trying to have 3 retail outlets, our own, like in our country. However, in the new country, the locations will be built and owned by us. Locations will be built and owned by us. There will be isolated sales outlet. Now I am in a large retail city. I'll lease a property and managed by me, my own staff, my own sales team, my own products. But in the new country, we are trying to buy 3 different isolated shops. So the questions will be, what do you think? Or the questions will be, so we have now done an capital investment appraisal technique. Based on capital investment appraisal technique, NPV is almost 0. Payback is 3 years. IRR is 15%. So like this, some details are given. You might be required to interpret the details given. So that's one question that I can give you. You are required to interpret the details given. You are not required to calculate. You are not required to calculate. So when the IRR is said to be 15%, you should calculate what your cost of debt is. You can calculate your cost of debt from the pre-scene. No? You can calculate your cost of debt from the pre-scene because the interest cost is there divided by the total capital. You get the interest cost. Tax rate also can be calculated, effective tax rate. We can't calculate the corporate tax rate, but effective tax rate can be calculated. It is available in the KYP, right? So we can calculate the effective tax rate. We can calculate the interest rate. Therefore, we can calculate the cost of debt. Cost of equity, we can't calculate. Cost of equity, we need to make an assumption. So you need to say, what is my cost of capital? And if the IRR is 15%, if IRR is 15%, and what is your cost of capital, should you go ahead? And when they say NPV is almost very small, marginal, 1 million, what does that mean? That means if you go ahead with this project, value of my business will only go up by that amount. That's one question that we can give. Other question from the same, related to the same, however, we have made many assumptions about the future sales values, future cost. Can you please explain difficulties faced by us in calculating the future sales, future cost for next many years? What are the difficulties available? What are the difficulties available in calculating future revenue and future cost? What are the difficulties available? Again, you need to give very practical answers. You need to say Eastland is a new country. We don't know anything about it. So therefore, predictions may be very difficult. First time we are running with the four different shops. We don't know. And don't forget, exchange rate you should say, because we are sending from our country. Eastland exchange rate will be different to our exchange rate. Therefore, exchange rate also will have an impact on the revenue and cost. Exchange rate, predicting exchange rate will be very difficult. So one common question that comes on the exam day is why it is difficult to calculate NPV, why it is difficult to predict something, why it is difficult to estimate something. You should give very practical answers if that question comes. Trust me, that question will be there on the exam day. I can explain relevant weighted average cost of capital. You should see, maybe they will give the cost of capital of your company now in your country. They will ask, can we use the same cost of capital to evaluate this Eastland investment? Yes or no? They will ask that question. They can easily ask that question. Should I use the same cost of capital for the overseas expansion? No, you can't. Overseas expansion has a different risk profile to your risk profile in the country. Because now there's additional legal risk, additional cultural risk, additional foreign exchange risk. So risk profile of the Eastland operation is very, very high. So you can't use the same cost of capital. And you need to look at what your capital structure in the country is. You know what the capital structure is? Debt equity structure in the country. And maybe with the new investment, if the new investment is going to be 100% debt, the new capital structure will be very much different. So therefore, we can't use the same cost of capital. The other one that they can link is point number 4 is, okay, we have now decided to go ahead. However, we are now arguing, should we go for a right issue? Should you do a new share issue? Or should you borrow? Should I borrow in this country? Should I borrow in Eastland? A loan? We are looking at these 4 different options. And can you please educate me advantages, disadvantages, characteristics of each of these options and help me to decide the best financing methods? Again, you should be able to manage. So the questions you can easily predict. These are the type of questions that will be there on the exam day. But the beauty is, questions on the exam day will be very, very practical questions that you will see. Very, very practical questions that you will see. You will not see theoretical questions, you will see practical questions. So when I say practical questions, some of those questions might be based on a theory available. Some of those questions might be based on a theory available. However, the answer cannot be completed from the theory knowledge. Answer needs to have a lot of practical points to be added. So this is what the type of the questions are. This is what the type of the questions are. Right. Now look at this. Maybe examiner will love to give a question from, maybe examiner would love to give a question from this. Responsibility centers. Responsibility centers. So when the questions are from the responsibility centers, examiner will never ask you to define cost center, profit center, investment center. No chance. Examiner will give a very practical questions for you to write very practical answers. Examiner will give very practical questions for you to write very practical answers. Right? Examiner will give very practical questions for you to write very practical answers. Right? So maybe examiner will this time select a question. Maybe examiner will this time select a question. Covering areas like, okay, responsibility centers might be taken as area number 5. So these are maybe the section number 2, responsibility centers, because we are trying to have someone overseas. And what kind of leader we need to have there? The leadership styles available. Leadership styles available. Right? Leadership styles available. Right? So because this is going to be overseas subsidiary. And what is the impact to the financial statements? What's the impact to the financial statement from this subsidiary that we are going to purchase? From the subsidiary that we are going to purchase, what is the impact to the financial statements? What's the impact to the financial statements? And with this subsidiary, whether business model is going to get changed. With this subsidiary, whether business model is going to get changed. So maybe does the 5 responsibility centers, 6 what kind of leader that we need to have, 7 financial numbers to be evaluated from the decision that you say how the financial numbers will have an impact. 7 and 8. 9, whether the new business, is it aligned with my business model? So that can be a section number 2 or section number 3 and 4 kind of questions that is available. Section number 3 and 4 kind of questions that is available. So you should be able to write very practical answers. So can we write, can we look at the areas first of all? Can we look at the areas first of all? Responsibility center, leadership styles, review the financial statement of the subsidiary and comment about it, recommend what actions that needs to be taken to improve the financial statement, and this new subsidiary in Eastland, is it aligned with my business model? Is it aligned with my business model? So those are the 4 areas that you may need to cover. Those are the 4 areas that you may need to cover. Right? So now, how? Now we have a branch overseas. We are buying toys from here, and we are sending the toys to Eastland. We don't manufacture, right? We buy the toys from here. We send them into Eastland. In Eastland, we have a separate team. Why? There are 3 outlets available. So we have 3 retail managers, and we have a head for the country, Eastland head. There is no purchasing department there because we will be sending the items. But there will be a market survey department. There's a sales department. There's a marketing department. There's a finance department. There's a legal department. Those departments will be there. There will be one person whom we recruit as head of the country. So he is responsible for asking the goods from our country, receiving the goods, distributing for the locations, ensure sales managers are doing their job, financials are done, legal side is done, risk is covered, cultural risk is evaluated. We have a head. So then what kind of a leader do we need? What are the different leadership styles available? What is the best leadership style? What is the HR department? Obviously, HR department should be there. What is the best leadership style that will be suited there? All right. And then they will do the financial statement after 6 months. So next section can say, we have been operating our 4 outlets in Eastland very successfully for last 6 months. Please see attached the financial statement of Eastland subsidiary. And you might be required to comment on the financial statement that is given to you. You might be asked your views of how do you improve the financial position, financial performance of the organization. The last question can be, this new subsidiary, is it aligned to our business model? So these are the 4 questions that might be there related to the second part of the section. Maybe I call it section 2. Earlier 4 questions from section 1. This is from section 2, but on the exam day, it might spread between more than one section. It might spread between more than one section. Right? So accountability centers. Please listen to this carefully. This question will be there on the exam day without a doubt. This question will be there on the exam day without a doubt. Please be ready. It was there in all the past papers, right? Now we are going to buy the toys in our country. We are going to send the toys to Eastland. And the Eastland guy's job is what? Take the toys, sell the toys, make money there. Now, what they should be responsible? How are we going to measure their performance? Are we going to measure their performance based on the profit? Are we going to measure their performance based on the profit? Then there will be something unfair because the cost of the items are decided by us. Cost of the items are decided by us. So when you suddenly say cost has gone up and they don't have a control over the cost. So the basic rule is no one should be responsible for what they can't control. Basic rule is no one should be responsible for what they can't control. Obviously, you should be responsible for it. If we make you responsible, you should be able to control it. If you can't control it, you are not responsible. Therefore, since we are sending the toys from our country to Eastland, suddenly we will increase the price, suddenly we will reduce the price, exchange rate will have an impact on them. So therefore, they should not be responsible for it. Unless we allow them to set the retail price in the way that they would like to do it. So whenever we increase the cost, they'll be able to increase the selling price. So then you might call it a profit center because they are entirely responsible for the selling price of it. So you need to be extremely careful in writing answers for these. One rule is you can't be responsible for what you can't control. And if you are a profit center, you should be able to at least decide the selling price of the product based on what you are going to send it. Based on what you are going to send it. Right? So related to the same topic, the other common question that comes up on the exam day related to the same topic, whether they are a profit center or not, comes is at what price we are going to invoice them. At what price we are going to invoice them. If you are going, depending on at what price we are going to invoice them. That is the primary idea of deciding whether it's a cost center, whether it's a profit center. Right? So, and what they should be responsible for. Now look at it. You might invoice them at the market price. You might invoice them cost plus. You might invoice them budgeted cost plus. Sometimes you invoice budgeted cost plus. Sometimes you invoice actual cost plus. Right? So there are various different transfer pricing arrangements that can be there. Again, you need to have a reasonable, nice idea about the transfer pricing arrangement between our unit and theirs. There's a topic called dysfunctional behavior. What do you mean by dysfunctional behavior? Dysfunctional behavior is this. You set the KPIs. When you set the KPIs, one of the business units is acting in a dysfunctional way, means one of the business units is taking decisions, so his KPIs are shown to be achieving the target. One of the business units is setting the KPIs in such a way it is shown that his KPIs are achieving the target. However, what he is doing is not in the best interest of the organization as overall. Right? So can I explain that again? So these are transfer pricing. Transfer pricing can be the other one related. Right. Now, so one of the business unit is taking decisions, so their KPIs are shown positively. But what they are doing is not in the best interest of the total overall organization. That is what you call behavioral consequences. As an example, so let's take the topic of behavioral consequences in a very simple way. We are setting a budget and we are pushing everyone to achieve the budget. We are setting a budget and we are pushing everyone to achieve the budget. Sales budget, the subsidiary or the business unit, intentionally they are setting a low budget. Why? When they intentionally set a low budget and when they easily achieved it, their performance will be shown as achieving. But setting a lower budget is not in the best interest of the organization. Setting a lower budget is not in the best interest of the organization. Because if you set a lower budget, your push, your drive will be less. If you set a higher budget, we would have tried to do better and better and better. So that's what the dysfunctional behavior is. So I gave an example of a dysfunctional behavior in terms of setting the budget. Look at these intercompanies. Whenever we tell them we will invoice you cost plus 5%, whenever we say we will invoice them cost plus 5%, again behavioral consequences are there. The selling unit. So I am selling, I have been authorized by the head office to charge my other unit. My transfer pricing is cost plus 5%. So I don't need to reduce the cost. Instead, if I increase the cost, that will be better because I get more profits. So therefore, I don't have a motivation to reduce cost. I just charge cost plus 5%. So therefore, my KPIs are achieved. Even the cost is high, better. I collect more money, and my expenses are reduced. I can report more profit. So that is to achieve my KPI. But that is not overall good for the overall organization. Overall organization, it would have been better if you reduce your cost as much as possible. If you reduce your cost as much. So these topics are linked to each other. Accountability centers, transfer pricing, behavioral consequences are linked to each other. Those questions will be there on the exam day, link into each other. Link into each other. Of course, on the exam day, other most critical question that might be there, which we have seen most of the time, is the financial statements, impact on the financial statement, impact on the financial statement. This is a very likely area to come. So examiner will give the GP ratio of the country, net profit ratio of the country, sales growth of the country, and you are required to comment. Sometimes they might give non-financial KPIs, sales per square feet, basket value in that country, customer satisfaction survey done, sales per salesperson, total sales divided by the salesperson. You should be able to go and evaluate each and every KPI and started to make comments. So maybe they will give the financial data pack for you to comment, or they might give certain non-financial data as well for you to comment. This is a common area that will be tested on the exam day. I don't think it's a difficult area, so I might not spend a lot of time on that. Business model. I mean, this subsidiary, is it aligned to the business model of ours? Very simple, straightforward questions that will be tested on the exam day. Is it aligned to the business model of ours? This question is a very, very famous question that comes on the exam day, where there will be questions on the business model. Right? There will be questions on the business. So you should know the business model of ours fairly well. How we have defined the value, how we are creating the value, how we are planning to distribute the value, and what is the capturing residual value means. Happy Place define the value in terms of choices that it offers to the consumer. Happy Place defines the value in terms of the choices that it offers to consumers. Happy Place aims to offer wide selection of exciting and desirable toys. So if you go into a country and start operation, examiner will ask you to evaluate that operation against the business model available. Okay. So how many showrooms I'm going to have in Eastland? How many showrooms did I say I'm going to have in Eastland? 3 showrooms. Did I say 3 or 4? How many showrooms we said we are going to have? 3 or 4? 3, right? Okay. So 3 or 4, whatever it is. And those I told you are isolated showrooms. We are not in a retail park. Therefore, those places are fairly small. Those places are fairly small. We can have about 1200 items, SKUs there. How many SKUs do we have now in our country in an outlet? We are going to have about 1200 SKUs there. How many outlets here? Ah, so then you are going against the defining of the value. You are going against the defining of the value. Because I have defined the value as variety of the toys, wide selection of toys. I'm going against because 1200 compared to what we have here 7000. I'm not saying you need to have 7000 there. But 1200 seems to be fairly low. How do we create value? We create value by having close relationship with toy manufacturers. There's no impact to that because relationship with the toy manufacturers, buying and all that are the decisions that will be done in our country, not in the Eastland. Not in the Eastland. Distribution, delivering value. Happy Place has a sophisticated inventory management system that enable to have the latest toy available for sale from its shops and website as soon. So maybe the same can be applicable there. So that kind of questions you should be able to answer. That kind of questions you should be able to answer, right? That's a second lot of questions. That's a second set of questions you might be see on the exam day. So what I'm trying to say is I'm not trying to say that these are the only questions can come, but this is what the examiner will play in the game. You should be able to look at what kind of areas that will be tested on the exam day. What did I do so far? I looked at two different likely areas for the exam day. Two different sets. Two different sets. Two different sets. Right? Two different sets. So can we look at, okay, we will certainly mark what else. We will certainly mark what are the other areas that can be there. But look at May and August, look at May and August 2022 examiners report. Look at May and August 2022 examiners report. Of course, we are not trying to go and learn this industry. It's piping. Tea. What do? They don't grow tea. They buy tea. They buy bulk tea and sell. They will buy bulk tea and sell. They are not growing tea. They will buy bulk tea and sell. What do you mean buy bulk tea and sell? They buy the tea in bulk, put it to small tea bags and sell. That's their business. That's their business. Right? So they do almost all the sales locally. Very small percentage of the sales are happening overseas. Very small percentage of the sales are happening overseas. In that paper, in this pre-sale, there were 6 variants set by the examiner. 3 variants were set for May and other 3 variants were set for August. So May, there were 3 variants. August, there were 3 variants. In the month of May 2022, there were 3 variants. In the month of August 2022, the second sitting of the same pre-seat, there were 3 different variants in the 2022. What I am looking at is the variant number 6, which means the last variant for August, which means the last variant for the August. So it is from the company called Piping. It is from the company called Piping, right? They don't manufacture tea. They don't grow tea. They buy tea and put it into the tea bags, put many different flavors and sell it all over the world. Sorry, sell it mostly in the country. They have a little export sales available. The reference material says, I'm jumping into the reference material to save time. Chief Executive Officer expressed concern that export sales provide only 5% of the revenue, 3% of the operating profit. Only 5% of the revenue is coming from export. Very small export revenue. 70% of exports goes to a country called Middle East. 70% exports is only 5%. of our total business. So export is very small. Huh? This is, I hope you are not confused. Huh? I'm not discussing about toys. This is May and August 2022 past paper, right? So don't worry, we'll come back to toys. We'll sell some tea and come back to toys. But the concepts we need to take. Concept. We are not going to be master of the tea industry, So here, in this tea company piping, only 5% is exported. Not enough. However, point is, 70% of that 5% go to one country called Midland. And Midland has large community of expatriates from our country. Lot of people in our country is Northlandian. Lot of Northlandians going and living in Midland. That's why we are selling some of the tea to Midland. Midland accounting for 70% of my export sales. Of course, my export sales is only 5%. So in Midland, we are trying to set up a distribution center in Midland. We are trying to buy unquoted company in Midland. We are trying to buy unquoted company in Midland. The questions are simple. Questions are simple. Second, discuss the impact of acquiring a center as a 100% foreign subsidiary will have on the interpretation of piping's published financial statement. Whenever you go and buy a subsidiary overseas, foreign subsidiary, what is the impact to our financial statement? Now, there are two things available. I hope you did not get confused. When you buy a subsidiary, what is the impact to the financial statement? That we have discussed, right? IFRS 3, IFRS 10. IFRS 3, business combination. IFRS 10, preparation of consolidated financial statement. We know what the impact whenever you buy a subsidiary to your financial statement. So this is different. This is you are buying a foreign subsidiary, and here they have given, I checked the exchange rate between N dollars and M dollars. The rates have been very, very volatile. So when the rates are volatile, you are going and buying a subsidiary in a foreign currency in M dollars. Why? M dollars is the Midland dollars. N dollars is Northlandian, our country. So when the exchange rate is very, very volatile, when the exchange rate goes up, comes down, what is the impact on the financial statements? What's the impact on the financial statement? So you have a foreign subsidiary. You need to consolidate the foreign subsidiary with you. IAS 21. IAS 21. You have a foreign subsidiary. You need to consolidate the foreign subsidiary with you. All the profit and loss items of the foreign subsidiary will be converted using the average rate. All the balance sheet items of the foreign subsidiary will be converted using the closing rate. The difference needs to be accounted as exchange gain or exchange profit in the exchange equalization account or exchange reserve account in the balance sheet. Right? So that's what the answer required. That's what the question available. So these are very easy type questions available if you manage it well. Unless you are trying to complicate your life, the questions on the exam day are not very difficult. Evaluate the risk of dysfunctional behavior associated with piping's marketing and distribution department transferring finished goods to Midland Sales and Distribution Center at a budgeted cost plus 5%. What are the dysfunctional behavior? What are the behaviors that might be there? Which will lead for them to record achievements in their profit, but overall for the organization, it will not be beneficial. So these are the questions that have been seen in the past. This is variant number 5. May and August 2022. Variant number 5. Evaluate the implications to piping business model or the consumer feedback on buying habits. I don't know. I have not read the question, but obviously we know what the answer is. Evaluate the impact for the piping's business model. There are 4 elements in the business model. You should take one by one and explain what the impact of the business model is. right? Right. So there's a reference material. So we can read the reference material and see what this issue is all about. What is the impact to the business model? We can read the reference material and see what this issue is all about. What is the impact for the business model? And maybe there's one more question there, so we can answer that question as well. Right? Can we read the reference material? Tan Pale, marketing and distribution director, reported that monthly sales volume were becoming increasingly volatile. Monthly sales volume are becoming increasingly volatile because of the retailers' promotional activities. Retailers are doing various promotions, so monthly sales are going up and down. Supermarkets often attempt to attract more shoppers by selling a small range of popular goods at a loss. The losses on reduced goods are more than compensated by the profits on increased sale of the full price items. Tea bags are sometimes included to those promotional activities. So tea bags, that's what we were selling, no? Tea bags are sold at a loss, therefore, by the supermarkets. I don't know what the impact was. Sellrite, the supermarket, Sellrite is a supermarket, reduced this month order of pipe-in tea bags by 40% compared to usual. My gosh. They have reduced the usual monthly demand by 40%. It has since announced that it will sell hot-low tea bags at half their usual selling price for next 6 weeks in order to attract customers into Sellrite also. So what is this company? Hotlow is my competitor. So they're trying to sell the competitor's product. Sellrite clearly expected to sell fewer boxes of pipe-in tea bags than usual in this period and wishes to clear space for Hotlow products. Then Pal expected that the other retailers would also order less of our tea for the duration of Sellrite process. So when one retailer is doing it, others will have to do. Consumer feedback conducted by the marketing and distribution department indicate that many consumers enjoy good quality tea, but they perceive little difference between leading tea brands. Some of the consumers who usually buy pipe-in tea bags will switch to another quality brand such as Hotlow for a duration of a cut price offer. When they give a lower price during that period, they will cross. Those consumers might even build up stocks of cut price tea bags, taking advantage of the tea's long shelf life. They might stocks for next few months. Debbie Saka, Chief Operating Officer, pointed out that it is inefficient to reduce the production levels temporarily. Demand has reduced by 40%. So you should be manufacturing 40% less. However, Chief Operating Officer pointed out that it is inefficient to reduce production level temporarily when demand decreases temporarily. That means that piping inventory of finished good increases during those periods. Fortunately, that enable piping to respond quickly when a major supermarket wishes to buy piping. So even though demand is coming down, he's saying, look here, we should not slow down the manufacturing. That means we'll build up the stocks. If someone wants the stock fast, we have the stocks to be given. So look at the question number 2. Don't you think it's interesting? Secondly, discuss the impact that holding inventory as a result of discussions to manufacture at a constant rate will have on piping's accounting ratios. Wow. What is the impact to the financial statement? What is the impact to the accounting ratios from a decision that we make? Very, very likely questions that can be seen on the exam day. I showed that question from the core activities just now as well, right? I showed that question from the core activities just now as well. This is a likely question. So can we take that question now? Whenever we take action, what the impact to the accounting ratios, right? Whenever you take action, I want you to, first of all, see what is the impact to the profit and loss account, cash flows, balance sheet all together. After that, I want you to think about the impact to the accounting ratio. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think about answer to this question. What is the matter? Our sales is going to come down by 40%. because supermarkets are not buying our tea now for a short period of time. However, we have decided to continue to manufacture, keep the stocks. So when we decide to continue to manufacture for the stocks, keep the stocks, when the sales is not great, what are the impact to the different accounting ratios available? So always when you try to answer a question like that, first of all, think about the impact to P&L, balance sheet, cash flow, then think about the impact to the accounting ratios. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think about it. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to think about it. So after you think about it for 5 minutes, I think our 1 hour is also over. So we can have a little chat. Therefore, take 5 minutes for that. Take 5 minutes for that. Okay, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay, so you did not hear me after the break. Okay, so let me repeat then. The question is simple and straightforward, no? Question is simple and straightforward. What's the question? Question is, you keep on manufacturing inventory. You keep on manufacturing inventory. When you keep on manufacturing inventory because you feel even though demand has come down by 40%, you feel that you should manufacture the full amount, full quantity. Maybe because if you reduce the manufacturing quantity, unit cost will go up. Because you have the capacity to manufacture 100,000, when you manufacture 60,000, your unit cost will go up. So therefore, you are thinking to continue to manufacture. Or you are thinking reduction of demand is short term. Or you are thinking reduction of demand is short term. Therefore, you think demand will go up. Therefore, you keep on manufacturing. Anyway, you decide to keep on manufacturing. Now, the question is not whether we should do that or not. That's not the question. Question is when you do that, what's the impact to the accounting ratio? So before you think about accounting ratios, think about the impact to P&L, balance sheet, cash flow. Think about the impact to P&L, balance sheet, cash flow. You are keep on manufacturing, inventory will go up. They are not selling. So inventory will go up. That means current assets will go up. Current liability also will go up because you need to pay. You need to pay. So current liability also will go up. So current asset, current liability, I don't think there will be a big impact. But when the inventory goes up, sales is not going up. Sales is not going up because you're not selling. That means cost of sales is not going up. Therefore, inventory holding period will go up. You are keeping inventory for a longer period now. You are keeping inventory for a longer period now. You are keeping inventory for a longer period now. So inventory holding period will go up. So inventory will go up. That means current assets will go up. Payable will go up. That means the liabilities will go up. Inventory holding period will go up. And very soon you will have a shortage of cash because you need to pay for the payables. For you to pay for the payables, you don't have cash. You don't have debtors. What do you have? You have inventory. Are we clear? The payable is going up. Current liability is going up. But how do you pay? You can't. For you to pay, you should have debtors. Then you can discount and get the money. Or you should have cash. Then you can get the money and pay. But inventory is going up. So you don't have cash in the business. So there's a cash shortage available. That needs to be financed. Overdraft will go up. If you are going to finance it short term, the overdraft will go up. If you are going to finance it from short term loans, overdraft will go up. If the short term loans you are going to finance, interest cost will go up. Interest cost goes up, losses will come. And if you try to go for a long term financing, gearing will go up. I am not recommending to finance short term working capital from the long term finance. I am not. But if you don't have a mechanism, you need to put the long term financing. You need to go for a bank loan. But when you go for a bank loan, the interest is there. The gearing will go for haywire. So this is what you got to be aware. So let's look at the examiner's answer. What examiner has been saying. So there were 6 papers set by the examiner. This should be the variant number 5. This should be the variant number 5. So go to variant number 5. Okay, you can't go like that. So I'll have to trace it like this. So variant 5 answer. So variant 6, I don't want to go to variant 6. Variant 6 is what we have looked at before. We have looked at the variant 6 today. In the 1 hour, we have looked at the variant 6. But I want to go to variant number 5. So variant 5 should be this, right? Business model, yeah. So variant 5, no. This is variant 4. I want variant 5. Variant 5 business model, okay. And variant 5 second question is what we are trying to answer. Accounting ratios. Read the answer. Read the examiner's answer. Read the examiner's answer. May and August 2022. This is technically August. This is the variant number 5. This came up in August. The inventory figure will increase. That we also know, right? Inventory figure will increase. But the cost of goods sold will not necessarily increase because no sales. So inventory turnover will slow down. Inventory holding period will slow down. which make the piping appear to be less efficient. At present, it's 7 days, which implies the inventory is not being held for an appropriate length of time. Arguably, the amount of inventory that is being held would have to increase substantially in order to have a marked impact on the results. If an inventory is allowed to double, then the inventory could still argue that 14 days is a relatively short period. So inventory holding period will go up, but they're saying it might not be a big impact because now we don't keep inventory for a long time. Holding more inventory will tie up the cash in the raw material and finished good. This will result the cash balances decreasing in line with the increasing inventory, but will not affect the current ratio because the change will increase one current asset and another will reduce, while current liabilities remain unchanged. The quick asset ratio will decrease. If you remove inventory, quick asset ratio will have impact. If this is to be a permanent arrangement, then piping will have to increase the capital employed, either short term or long term. Capital employed will have to increase. It might be deemed reckless to tie significant amount of cash in inventory. And so piping might have to increase its borrowing. That is, if they decide to go for a long-term debt. If you decide to go for a short-term, you need to borrow, you need to go for OD. But OD interest rates are high, so profit margin will come down. Return on capital employed. So this is the answer that is given. So these are the very practical answers that will be there on the exam day. So I was trying to ask a question. So we took 1 hour and 11 minutes so far because we wanted to look at what kind of areas might be there on the exam day. So that's the discussion. So we are looking at 2 sets of questions based on the pre-sale. We were going through the core activities. Based on the core activities, we picked the areas for 2 sets of questions. Then we look at the May and August 2022 past papers to show you that very similar questions are there. So we have taken 1 hour and 12 minutes. Therefore, time for me to ask. Are you clear of everything that we have done so far? If it is clear, can you please say clear? If not clear, please do ask questions. If it's clear, can you please say clear? If not clear, please do ask questions. If everything is clear, can you please say clear? If not, please do ask questions. Everyone is saying clear, so then can I move on to the last 15 minutes? Can I move on to the last 15 minutes? Can I move on to the last 15? What else? What else could be there on the exam day? What else could be there on the exam day? What else could be there on the exam in the last 15 minutes? Right? So let's go into a discussion on that. Let's go into a discussion on that. I mean, on the exam day, there could be another entirely different set of questions that will appear for you, which is possible. Even if you look at past papers, you will realize some questions are, some entire exam papers, entire variants are very biased towards very practical questions. Some of the variants will have a lot of theoretical questions. Some of the variants will have a lot of practical questions. Some of the variants will have a lot of theoretical questions. But most of these theoretical questions for you to answer, you need to have a very good practical background. Just by having the theory, you cannot get a decent mark. So I'm trying to see another set of questions, a fair mix between practical and theoretical situations. Practical and theoretical situations, right? So let's pick a topic and we'll start from there and we'll try to then move on to based on that, right? Right, we'll pick a topic. Right. So on the exam day, for the last 15-minute discussion, we have 120 retail outlets here. All of them are leased. We might decide to change the business model in terms of the selling strategy is concerned, we might try to look at a slightly different way of managing. We might try to decide a slightly different way of managing, right? One thing we could do is we might decide to move into manufacturing locally in our country, or we might decide to reduce the number of factories that we have outsourced, work on the different number of factories that are needed. Now we have 10 factories. We are trying to evaluate all the 10 factories. And so now we have 25 factories. We are trying to evaluate all 25 factories and select only 15 factories to work, because within 25 factories is too many. So therefore, we are trying to evaluate all 25 factories and select only the best 15 factories to work with. For us to do this, we have decided to appoint a project management team. But this is a big project. This cannot be done in 3 weeks. This cannot even done in 1 year. Because you need to evaluate and you need to slowly transfer production from 25 units to 15. It's not easy. You need to slowly transfer production from 15 units to 25 units to 15. It might take even 1 year. And proper evaluation needs to be done. And we can't upset them. Suddenly we can't go and say, look here, I'm not giving any more orders. They have been working for us as a manufacturer for last X number of years, those 25 guys. And after you select the best 10, then of course you take a risk as well, because now you are working only with the 10 factories. Again, the risk is available. So it will take about 1 year. Therefore, we have decided to appoint a project management team who will work on this, a very common question that comes on the exam. What are the different project management tools? I'm not going to explain what they are, but I hope you have gone through my E2P2 refresh theory. You can go through, right? Or you can go through E2P2 refresh theory of anyone. Google and see. So we are trying to appoint a project management tool, the project management team. First question that usually comes is, what are the project management tools available? Like work breakdown charts, network analysis. So you should be able to kind of be aware of that. Then you should be sensible of whom you will appoint to this project management team. And this project management team should include someone from purchasing department. We have been buying from these factories, someone from finance, someone from HR, because it's a cross-functional team that we need to set up. So this area, clearly a good area for the examiner to give a correction. After 3 months, we had a meeting with this project management team. Then we see this crazy team is not working together. They are only fighting inside the team against each other. There are a lot of dislikes between the team members. I can give a correction. What are the characteristics of high performing team and how can we get this team to perform better? Again, look at very ground level practical situation, why the team is not working. So you will be able to fix it. You will be able to fix it. You will be able to fix that. Right? So when you try to reduce some of the factories, 10 factories, you are going to let them go. Wow. That is where this communication, negotiation, conflict management will become critical. So I am sure now examiner can set 3 questions from communication side, negotiation side, conflict management side. So communication, can I give a question on communication? We have already identified 3 factories that we don't need their services from. We have already identified 3 factories that we don't need their services. We have already identified, the project team had successfully identified the alternative factories, and those factories are willing to produce the toys that had been manufactured by these 3 factories for years. The decision was taken because they were too small to operate, Not really worth to manage them. Therefore, we have decided to discontinue these 3 factories. How will you communicate this to the factory owners? I mean, will you send a SMS saying that we don't need your services from next month? No, you can't. How do you communicate? How do you communicate? You need to go and meet. Someone senior should go. Talk to the owners of the factory. Explain the justification why we want to do it. And say sorry. Appreciate the effort that they made so far for your product. Right? And certainly give them enough time so they can find alternative customers that they can work for. And now we had quality control teams. The quality control teams are based on various different factories. Now number of factories are coming down, therefore need for quality control teams are coming down. Now you are asking some of the quality control teams to go to a different factory because that factory is going to get closed. Quality control teams are saying we can't go that far. They're trying to look for jobs. We are saying don't go anywhere. Come into our other factories. We want you there because you are experienced. How do you negotiate with them? How do you negotiate? How do you convince them not to resign, but to go for the other factory? Far away, I agree. They'll have to travel. But how do we convince them? You go and talk to them and they say, look, are you crazy? That's 2 hours away. I can't drive for 2 hours every day. It's not worth. I can't come. And you did not inform before. You should have informed before. I'm going to look for a factory. How will you convince him? We are given the answers in the power mock. First, address their issues. See why they don't like to go. Address their issue. Then justify why they should be doing what you want them to do. First of all, look at their problem. They are saying transport is the problem. Tell them, we'll provide transport. Tell them, don't worry, you can come to office a little late. We'll reduce your number of working hours. We will give you additional allowances, additional salary, additional benefit. So you resolve their problems. And we'll say, sorry, we could not tell you because this is why we could not tell you. Give the reason. Then you need to convince them. You need to say, look here, we are going to be much larger and bigger. The number of factories were reduced so you can get a better quality. So you are going to work for a larger, better, stronger organization. Therefore, don't go. So these are the questions that will come. The board meeting, there's a fight now. The fight at the board meeting is one of the directors is saying, no, we should not reduce from 25 to 10. 25 to 15, we should not reduce. Other members are saying, no, we should reduce from 25 to 15. So there's a conflict. How do you resolve the conflict? How do you resolve the conflict between 2 directors? How to resolve the conflict? Conflict resolution doesn't mean coming to a proper conclusion whether we should reduce or not reduce. That's not the conflict resolution is. Conflict resolution is how you will get both these parties to come to a conclusion, whatever the conclusion that they wanted to come. That's the point where you should go and talk to both the teams and say, look here, let's not argue, let's not create a conflict. Let's take a decision that is for the benefit of both the sides. And so let me give a slightly different thing from the conflict side, right? So maybe the conflict is between, let me give a slightly different question, because generally when there is a conflict, what we need to do is we need to get both of them to work together, educate them the advantage of working together, educate them the advantage of coming to a solution being together is the way to resolve the conflict. Is the way to resolve the conflict. So that set of questions can easily appear there. That set of questions can easily appear there. That set of questions that easily appear there. Right? What else? What else? Look at this. We have reduced the quality control teams now. These are after 6 months. We have reduced the quality control teams now. But I can see the quality control team is not motivated. How employee engagement employee empowerment, employee alignment, how employee engagement, employee empowerment, employee alignment can be used to enhance individual and team performance in the quality department. These are another likely questions to come. So you need to delegate. You need to delegate a lot of work. You need to get the views of the quality control team. Explain to them how critical they are for the business. Educate them, update of where the business is driving. So then they'll be part of the organization. They will try to work together. So I was trying to take 1.5 hours today to give a summary of what kind of questions that might come. I look at pre-scene quickly. I was looking at what questions might be there on the exam day based on the core activities in 3 different lots. I went to the May and August last paper to show you what kind of practical questions might be there. So I have last 4 minutes to answer your questions. So 1.5 hours, we can end the session. Please ask your questions. I'll try to answer as much as possible. If you want to clarify anything, you can certainly send me a message to me, maybe a WhatsApp message to me. So I'll be able to help you with that as well. If not, you can ask any questions. If no questions, let's say goodbye and all the very best for your exams. I wish you all the very best for your exams. What is the meaning when the working capital cycle goes minus? That means our cash is not tied up in the working capital. Based on the inventory, debtors, cash, payables, I have excess money. I'm not putting the money in. Generally, you need to put the investment in the working capital. Here, we don't need. Working capital is plus. We can take the money out. You understand what do you mean taking the money out from working capital? Look at the agent. I have seen vegetable agents. Their working capital is minus. How? Someone called them and asked 5 lorries of potatoes. They will say, you want 5 lorries of potatoes? No problem. No problem, I'll give it. Put the money. So they'll give the bank details. And this guy he's in the central city. He's not in a vegetable garden. He's the agent. He will say, put the money in. So he gets the money for 5 lorries of potatoes. He checked the bank account, money has come. Then he called the farmer and say, please send 5 lorries to this address. And he'll tell the farmer, don't worry, I'll pay you at the end of the month with the others. So what is the working capital? Debtors is how much? 0. Debtors is only for half a day or half an hour, right? Then you convert, you got the cash, but your payables, you have enough time, right? That is what the minus working capital. Could you please advise the areas that we should plan? So basically what I said, right? You should do all the mocks given, that will cover. Explanation about integrated reporting, I did not do it. Maybe I'll do it in all sessions were comprehensive. Do we get the video recording? Of course, you'll get the video recording. So thank you very much. All the very best. Pass the exams. Enjoy. My name is Channa. If you want to ask any question, send me a WhatsApp message. I have given my number there. Thank you very much. Good night. Goodbye. Please be safe. Take care. We'll be in touch. Bye, everyone. Power mock answers are available on the LMS. I told you before as well, right? Power mock answers are available on the LMS. Bye. Take care.